Physiology of Stress. So that's great that stress makes you stronger in case you need to lift a car off someone or wrestle with a lawnmower or a polar bear. But the million-dollar question is, what exactly happens inside your body to make it so much stronger? In a nutshell, blood is diverted from less vital organs such as your stomach and intestines to more vital organs such as arms and legs so you can fight or run away. Heart rate increases to supply more blood quickly. You have to have the blood pumping faster throughout your body in order to exhibit increased strength. Blood pressure increases in order to supply blood efficiently. Respiratory rate increases in order to get more oxygen to your body. And more glycogen, which is basically carbohydrates that are stored in the liver and muscles, is released into your bloodstream. Glucose is basically sugar and is the fastest and most easily available form of energy. But let's go beyond this and talk about all the changes that go on inside your body when you're stressed. Let me first ask, which physiological system do you think is affected by stress? Cardiovascular, respiratory, immune, muscular, skeletal, endocrine, or nervous system? All of them are affected by stress. In other words, your entire body is affected when you're stressed. There is no physiological system in your body that is not affected by stress. The cardiovascular system consists of your heart and lungs and is responsible for blood circulation. As the bear comes closer, your heart rate and blood pressure increase instantaneously. Breathing becomes rapid and the lungs take in more oxygen. The spleen discharges red and white blood cells, allowing the blood to transport more oxygen throughout the body. Blood flow may actually increase 300 to 400% during a stressful situation. This increased blood flow primes the muscles, lungs, and brain for added demands. Also, adrenaline, which is released when you're stressed, acts on the B1 receptors of the heart. B1 receptors are chemical substances that are located on the walls of the heart. These B1 receptors combine with adrenaline and other related hormones, which results in stimulation of the heart. This causes an increase in the rate and force of the contraction of the heart. So the heart doesn't just beat faster, it beats harder. So the final result is increased cardiac output, which refers to the amount of blood your heart is able to pump out within 1 minute. Adrenaline also acts on alpha receptors of the blood vessels. Alpha receptors are chemicals found in the walls of the blood vessels that combine with adrenaline and the other related substances, which results in stimulation of the blood vessels. This causes the blood vessels to contract, which increases your blood pressure. Stress hormones act indirectly on the lungs, resulting in increased respiratory rate. This allows more oxygen to enter the lungs, which thereby allows more oxygen into the blood, which thereby allows more oxygen to enter various tissues throughout the body. The effects of the confrontation with the bear on the immune system are similar to mobilizing a defensive line of soldiers to potentially critical areas. The hormones reduce activity in parts of the immune system so that specific infection fighters, including important white blood cells or other immune molecules, can be repositioned. These immune-boosting troops are sent to the body's front lines where injury or infection is most likely to occur, such as the skin and the lymph nodes. Increased levels of cortisol suppress the immune system, resulting in increased susceptibility to infection. Just a quick note, cortisol is a steroid. Although steroids are used to treat allergies, in the long run, they can derange the entire immune system. So if cortisol, again, which is a steroid, is secreted continuously due to persistent stress, there will be flaring up to allergies. How many of you with allergies notice a flare-up during stressful times? When you're experiencing emotional stress, you subconsciously contract your muscles. Have you ever been driving in traffic and you find that you're gripping the steering wheel really hard? Or have you ever been in the middle of taking a test and you find that your shoulders are sore because you've been contracting them, as evidenced by the fact that they are lifted up to your ears? When you're stressed out, and of course it depends on the extent to which you're stressed, the muscle tension can be found in muscles all throughout your body, including your face. Most people feel the effects of stress mostly in their shoulder and neck muscles because that's where a lot of contractions occur during stress. When your muscles are constantly contracted, they can actually pull your skeletal system out of alignment. So stress causes you to contract your muscles, which thereby affects your skeletal system. The endocrine system is a system of glands, each of which secretes a type of hormone into the bloodstream to regulate the body. Stress stimulates those glands to secrete the stress hormones. The nervous system consists of the central nervous system, the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, the neural pathways to the extremities. The autonomic nervous system, which is part of the central nervous system, is further broken down into two systems, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. When you encounter encountered the bear or any stressor and you perceive that stressor to be bad and you feel stress-inducing emotions such as anger or fear, your sympathetic nervous system is activated. It is the sympathetic nervous system that is responsible for activating the stress response. And it is the parasympathetic nervous system that is responsible for conserving energy and bringing you back to homeostasis. Remember that homeostasis is when all systems are in check or when everything is normal. So the parasympathetic nervous system does exactly the opposite of what the sympathetic nervous system does in order to establish balance or equilibrium again. Take a look at some different effects of the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. So stress affects your entire body. Just like the model of stress, the process of these physiological reactions is a chain of events or a domino effect. Let's start with your brain. Everything that happens to your body when you're stressed originates in the brain. It all starts in the brain. The best way to envision your body's reaction to stress, especially acute stress, is to imagine yourself being chased by a bear. In response to seeing a bear, a part of the brain called the HPA system is activated. The HPA system consists of the hypothalamus, pituitary, and the adrenal glands. Those are the three glands that are most closely associated with the stress response. After seeing the bear, the hypothalamus, located at the base of the brain, secretes a hormone called ARH. ARH then stimulates the pituitary gland, located below the hypothalamus, to secrete ACTH, another hormone. ACTH then stimulates the adrenal glands, located on top of each kidney, to secrete adrenaline, also called epinephrine, noradrenaline, also called norepinephrine, and cortisol. These three stress hormones are primarily responsible for the physiological effects of stress. The release of these hormones activates an area inside the brain which triggers an emotional response to a stressful event. In the case of the bear, this emotion is most likely fear. The brain also releases neuropeptide S, which refers to small proteins that modulate stress by decreasing sleep and increasing alertness. This gives you a sense of urgency to run away from the bear or the stressor. Have you ever had insomnia when you're going through a particularly stressful period? Your inability to sleep is caused by having a lot on your mind, but having a lot on your mind causes you to have elevated levels of neuropeptide S, which inhibits sleep. During a stressful event, hormones and neurotransmitters suppress activity in areas of the front of the brain concerned with short-term memory, concentration, inhibition, and rational thought. This sequence of mental events allows a person to react quickly, either to fight the bear or to flee or run away from it. It also interferes with the ability to handle difficult social or intellectual tasks and behaviors during that time. Hormones and neurotransmitters also signal the hippocampus, a nearby area in the brain, to store this emotionally loaded experience in long-term memory. In primitive times, this brain action would have been essential for survival, since long-lasting memories of dangerous stimuli, such as a large bear, would be critical for avoiding such threats in the future. Just a quick note about cortisol. Cortisol is very important in organizing systems throughout the body to deal quickly with the bear or the stressor. It affects the heart, lungs, circulation, metabolism, immune system, and even the skin, and helps each of these to quickly deal with the stressor. So cortisol is incredibly important if you encounter a bear or stressor requiring increased power, speed, or strength. But if you don't need increased power, speed, or strength, it's dangerous. Of all the hormones that are released when you're stressed, cortisol appears to be the most dangerous to your health. Studies indicate that elevated cortisol levels decrease appetite. Okay, some of us could use that, but it also slows down and decreases the strength of the immune system. It shuts down your body's ability to repair tissue. It prevents you from sleeping, along with neuropeptide S, and it's actually strong enough to break down bone. One study found that the bone density of 40-year-old depressed women, which would cause elevated cortisol levels, was that of 70-year-old women. So 40-year-old women had 70-year-old bones. Remember, stress is when you're out of homeostasis. You're out of homeostasis when you're depressed. So out of all the three stress hormones, cortisol is probably the most important if you need it, but the most dangerous if you don't need it. Let's talk about what stress does to your organs. The spleen, which is a reservoir of blood, shrinks to expel blood to the blood vessels. The salivary glands decrease production of salivation, so the mouth and the throat become dry, making it difficult to speak and swallow. The gastrointestinal tract is deprived of blood supply, resulting in poor digestion, so you don't digest foods easily. and the rate of your digestion slows down when you're under stress. The skin, there's decreased blood supply to the skin, which causes your skin to become cold and clammy. The recti pilae muscle, which is attached to the hair follicles, contracts, resulting in goose bumps. The colon, the transit time in the colon is increased, resulting in loose stools. There's a decrease in blood supply to your stomach, which results in worsening of ulcers that might be present along the walls of the stomach. Once the threat is passed, the systems return to normal. This is known as the relaxation response. The hormone that causes everything to go back to normal is called acetylcholine and is associated with the relaxation response. And all of the physiological changes that occur with activation of the parasympathetic nervous system are associated with the relaxation response. So you can see there's a lot that goes on inside your body each and every time you encounter a stressful situation. The extent of these changes is in proportion to the perceived stressor. Encountering a bear or seeing a car on top of your child would most likely produce these physiological changes to a greater extent than studying for an exam, or maybe it depends on what exam. General Adaptation Syndrome. Hans Selye is the psychologist who is credited with conceptualizing the General Adaptation Syndrome, or the GAS. He proposed that our bodies go through stages when we encounter stressors. Stage 1 is known as the stage of alarm and is what happens to your body when you initially encounter a stressor. Like a smoke alarm going off, all senses are put on alert. So this is the stage when your body first begins to go through the stress response. This stage would probably be analogous to acute stress. So applying this first stage to college life, you're in the stage of alarm maybe during the first week of classes when you're trying to get into the class you really need to graduate and it's full. You're hit with a huge bill for all the textbooks you have to buy. You're a little freaked out by the amount of work that you have to do for all your classes after going through the syllabus for each class, etc. Stage 2 is known as the stage of resistance, when your body tries to revert back to a stage of physiological calmness or homeostasis by resisting the alarm. However, the body stays activated or aroused, usually at a lesser intensity than during the alarm stage, but enough to cause a higher metabolic rate in some organ tissues. This stage would probably be analogous to chronic stress. Going back to the example of college life, if you have a heavy unit load and you're working full-time and you have additional family responsibilities, you probably will enter this stage of resistance after the first couple of weeks of having such a hectic schedule and having so much on your plate. After a couple of weeks, though, you get used to your busy schedule. You still feel stressed, but you don't feel as stressed as you did during the first couple weeks of the quarter. Stage 3 is known as the stage of exhaustion, when your body says no more and you get sick. Although you may have somewhat gotten used to your hectic schedule, at some point you start to feel really burned out and worn down, and you might start getting sick. You are now in the stage of exhaustion. Exhaustion occurs when one or more of the organs targeted by specific metabolic processes can no longer meet the demands placed upon it, and they fail to function properly. So this stage would be analogous to the last stage of the model of stress when health consequences occur. You have 2 supplemental videos for this lecture. The first one is The Science of Stress Physiology and is just under 4 minutes. Listen to exactly what happens in your brain and body whenever you encounter a stressor. The second one is Stress Response in Animation and is a super quick 1-minute animation of what happens to your body when you're stressed. Key points. Your body becomes stronger, faster, and more powerful because blood is diverted from less vital organs to more vital organs. Your heart rate and blood pressure increases, respiratory rate increases, and more glycogen is released into your bloodstream. All physiological systems are affected by stress. The process starts in the brain. The sympathetic nervous system is responsible for initiating the stress response, and the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for initiating the relaxation response. The general adaptation syndrome consists of 3 stages: the stage of alarm, resistance, and exhaustion. And that's it for this lecture.